Coming in at number 10 is Wondrous Man from Earth 11. Talking about unstoppable alternate Wonder Woman, and of course, a man makes the list. Yikes! Dane of Elysium is from the alternate Earth of Earth 11, and he isn't the only gender-swapped hero. In fact, all the heroes you may be used to are swapped. Here, the Amazons are an all-male race of warriors. The Themyscirians had actually joined with the world, creating a matriarchal society, and this group of male warriors made their way to the Isle of Elysium, where they would remain segregated from the women's world. Dane was their prince, and a hero to the world, until he wasn't. Dane found himself expelled from the Justice Guild, this world's Justice League of America, and banished from women's world when he took the life of Maxine Lord for controlling Superwoman. Dane didn't take too kindly to this banishment, and so he decided to fight for his honor and the honor of the Amazons of Elysium by invading the United States and battling the Justice Guild, the Freedom Fighters, and the Army of Atlantis. In at number 9 is Flashpoint Wonder Woman. Flashpoint is one of the groundbreaking stories to come out of DC, presenting us with an alternate timeline caused by the Flash. It's also going to be the basis for the DCEU's Flash movie. What I have not heard word on just yet is if the Warlord version of Wonder Woman from Flashpoint will show up in that movie. By all that is holy, I hope she does. This version of Wonder Woman is already Queen of the Amazons when we are introduced to her character, and she's in a bitter rivalry and war with Atlantis and its ruler, Emperor Aquaman, which is a stupid name. That whole conflict started when her mother, Queen Hippolyta, was removed from the living at Wonder Woman and Aquaman's wedding. Diana then took the life of Mira as retribution, and the conflict snowballed until Diana had taken complete control of the UK as the new Themyscira. This version of Wonder Woman is basically the same as the standard Wonder Woman, but it's her feats and her title as Queen of the Amazons that makes her pretty much unstoppable.
Number 8. Big Barda. Big Barda is another hero who often feels invincible in terms of her approach to heroism. Big Barda herself is a new god. She hails from Apocalypse, where she was once one of Darkseid's fearsome female furies. Despite the fact that Big Barda has recently resurfaced joining up with the Birds of Prey, which honestly I think is a great fit for her, she hasn't been regularly featured prior to this for some time, and I feel like she is a character who deserves more hype in the comics. Heck, even in the movies, where is our Big Barda solo film, huh? I feel like actually James Gunn would probably do a really good job of putting that together, the Big Barda solo film. Oh, I would watch that. I would be in that. I don't know if I'm jacked enough to be Big Barda, but I'd get jacked to be Big Barda. She's so cool. Number 7, Naomi. Naomi is probably one of the most powerful of the newer heroes that we've seen. But do most people even know who she is? Probably not. Amber, do you know who she is, Naomi? Nope, see, there you go. Despite her powers being comparable, and I would argue even stronger than characters like Superman, she isn't often heavily featured in the comics. Unlike Superman, whose weakness is actually magic, Naomi bolsters magic around her. Haha! So magic does not have the same negative effect on her, but instead works almost in the exact opposite way. Her powers allow her to generate energy, which she can then use to boost her powers or any magic or magical beings around her. I'm still waiting for an epic Zatanna and Naomi team up to happen in the comics, and yes, I know Naomi had her own TV series, but she also only got one season of that. And while I've heard some great things about it, overall it seems like the series was met with a mixed reception between audience and critics. So, although honestly, I gotta watch it. I should watch the Naomi series. Bet I'd probably enjoy at least some of it. I mean, I'm surprised I'm enjoying Gotham Knights as much as I am, even though that show is an experience. Number 6, Killer Frost. Caitlin Snow is truly a character that has sat on the periphery of the DC mainstream for years and years. Yet despite being super cool, pun intended, and interesting in regards to her backstory, whether we're focusing on Caitlin honestly, or even her predecessor, Louise Lincoln, but especially Caitlin, she barely gets featured in the comics, appearing less than 100 times in the last 10 years. If we're talking about Caitlin Snow, that is. And that's even with a version of Caitlin's character being adapted for the CW Arrowverse television series The Flash, appearing as one of the key members of the Flash's support team there. Number 5, Batgirl. One of the weirdest things with DC is how sometimes they just completely leave their stories open to being canon or not, depending on how fans receive those stories. And one of the weirdest incidents of this happening was actually with The Killing Joke. Now, The Killing Joke was written by Alan Moore and was never intended by him to be necessarily a part of the main continuity. And as far as I know, it still isn't even really fully canon, except for one part of that story, the successful attack on Barbara Gordon by the Joker, which left her both traumatized and paralyzed from the waist down. Why this was the only thing we chose to keep from this story, I don't know. But the whole idea of it just feels super weird to me, especially when you consider how brutal and graphic this attack was against Barbara. And Barbara gets no opportunity to defend herself, having been surprised by the Joker's visit while visiting her dad in her civilian form. That being said, she's still Barbara Gordon, so you still would think, you know, maybe she'd do something, but no. This element of the story would change Barbara's life forever, and although I do like Babs as Oracle, it feels like she was robbed of some agency here. In fact, it feels like she was robbed of a lot of agency here, especially when you consider the story was never really intended to be incorporated into the canon. Barbara Gordon has since managed to heal and return to her role as Batgirl while still keeping all the skills she was shown to have as the brilliant hacker and computer whiz Oracle. But I still feel like the fact that she suffered so severely from what was intended to be a story that existed outside of canon is brutal. Number 4, Blackfire. You know you deserve better when I barely talked about you as a character on the channel when I've been working here for almost 5 years. Yikes. Poor Blackfire. I'm sorry, Blackfire. I'm sorry for my part in this. I feel like the thing I'd personally love to see more of from a character like Blackfire is perspective in the comics. Blackfire is the evil sister of Starfire. And I mean, she is really evil. And while she might be one of the best of the worst around, I would say she does ultimately lack some depth. Sure, she is really, really bad, but I've always found her to be more surface level in terms of her motivation behind why she does what she does. In the New Earth continuity, it's the lack of respect and love from her people and her jealousy for her young sister, Coriander, Starfire, who got all that love instead, that basically drives her to do such terrible things. In the Prime Earth continuity, this is less focused on, but still plays a role. And even in the New Earth continuity, I'd like to see more of this in terms of the nuances of Commander's character. I understand her being jealous, I get that, but how else does this affect the way the Blackfire sees not just like her sister, but like the whole world? How else does she justify such terrible actions? Is there any way to get across to her and potentially reach her on an emotional level? I want to feel for Commander, and I often feel she's robbed of any kind of sympathetic perspective, even with everything she went through as a child. I mean, like, I do feel bad for her in terms of like what happened to her, but I just feel like we never really get to connect with her, you know? And I think I'd like to do that more. Is that weird? People are gonna be like, why you want to connect with this super evil character? Look, I love evil characters, and I think sometimes they have reasons. Number 3, Variant. Talk about women who have been shafted in the comics. How about any of these cyber women that we have seen who have acted as female counterparts to Cyborg? Among them is Variant. Variant only made a handful of appearances before she was tragically just like kind of written out, but I do think her character had promise, and I've always felt it would be cool for Cyborg to have someone to talk to who really gets what it's like to live as he does and share his perspective. Scarlet Taylor is very similar to Cyborg in that regard, being a member of the CIA who almost lost her life on a mission and was saved by being transformed into a cyborg like Cyborg himself was. Number 2, Vixen. Vixen is a supermodel turned businesswoman and in the current continuity, a supermodel slash fashion designer turned primetime show host and animal activist. Well, it's more than likely that Vixen has been an animal activist ever since she possessed the superpower to take various animal shapes. Armed with the Tantu Totem, she can transform into various different animals and harness their own unique abilities and powers. And even without the totem, she currently still can call on at least some of its power, giving herself like animal characteristics basically. Still, despite having this insane amount of power at her fingertips and the fact that she has a pretty cool backstory is stunning, and is a badass, we don't see Vixen featured that often in the comics. When we talk about Halle Berry and DC, that Catwoman movie, look, that wasn't great, but I feel like Vixen would have been an amazing character to see Barry in the role of. Number 1, Circe. While Hecate and Hera are both goddesses, at one point Circe is even more powerful than the both of them, after she takes within herself all of Hecate's power, which allows her to tap into the source of magic. Even without being able to tap into the source of magic, Circe is known for being a fearsome and powerful witch who can easily defeat many of those who would stand against her. And yet despite this, we haven't really seen Circe focused on as a villain in what honestly feels to me like forever. I know it hasn't been that long, but it feels like forever. In Justice League Dark by James Tynion IV, we even get a great look into Circe's tragic backstory that shows us why Circe is as power-hungry and ruthless as she is. She didn't necessarily have the easiest life, guys. It comes from a place of self-preservation because she was so cruelly mistreated by the world, and yet despite building up her character, it still often feels like she falls by the wayside at DC Comics. She's such a cool character. She should have her own series, honestly.
Number 10, Amanda Waller. She doesn't even have superpowers, but she is a power all on her own. Nicknamed the Wall, she is a government official who will do anything in the name of national security. I'm talking breaking the rules, killing people, even killing innocent people. She is the commander of Task Force X, aka Suicide Squad, a supervillain team that performs special operations under her command. She has a brilliant tactical mind and is ruthless and disciplined, bending supervillains to her will to get her work done, but she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She once even uncovered Batman's secret identity. She might not be the deadliest DC villain by a pretty wide margin, but there are a whole host of DC villains that would say she's plenty deadly. It's this ability to get superpowered villains to do her dirty work that earns her this spot on our list. Number 9, Catwoman. Coming straight from the heart of Gotham City, Selina Kyle has had a varied origin, but she always ends up becoming Catwoman. In more recent years, she shows up more as a helper to Batman than as an enemy, but she is one of Batman's original villains, and for good reason. She is in peak physical condition and a nimble acrobat as well as master thief, sometimes even using literal cats to help her in her schemes. She might not have super strength or energy manipulation, but she is still a deadly foe, a skilled martial artist, stealth expert, and has considerable skill with weapons, including firearms and swords.
Number 8, Becca from Gods and Monsters. Becca may just be the strongest of the Wonder Women who have shown up today, and that's because she's different from them all. She isn't even an Amazon. Becca, who is Wonder Woman in the animated Gods and Monsters, is actually a new god. She was exiled from New Genesis following her marriage to Darkseid's son, Orion, a wedding that was interrupted by her family, who used the momentary peace between New Genesis and Apocalypse to launch a sneak attack. When she came to Earth, she became Wonder Woman alongside a vampire Batman and a Superman who was actually the son of General Zod. As a new god, she does have similar abilities to Wonder Woman, only they should be far superior. She wields immortality, super strength and durability, flight, super healing, and self-sustenance, but more literally, she also wields a golden lasso, New Genesis armor, and a sword given to her by Orion that was crafted by the greatest smiths on Apocalypse and is basically indestructible. Certainly a powerful version of Wonder Woman. Number 7, Superwoman from Earth 3. While Superwoman is an alternate version of Wonder Woman, originally she was actually the Lois Lane from Earth 3, who on this world seems to have similar powers to a Kryptonian, but she was indeed an Amazon, wielding the lasso of submission instead of truth, which was capable of forcing others to do her bidding and forcing them to love her. She was capable of not only everything Wonder Woman could do, but she could fire beams of red-hot energy from her eyes, and she could fly, which I'm pretty sure Wonder Woman can do most of the time. She created an incredibly toxic love triangle between Ultraman, which is Superman in this world, and Owlman, which is Batman in this world, of the crime syndicate of America, even having a child with Owlman, but promising to Ultraman that it was his, but it was actually some other guy's baby, and it's just this big whole thing, and woo! Don't want to talk about it anymore. Number 6, Donna Troy of Earth 3. Just as Donna Troy became the new Wonder Woman in the legit continuity, on Earth 3 she would also become the new Superwoman. But unlike the previous Superwoman, who seemed to have the same abilities as a Kryptonian, Donna Troy was a bona fide Amazon from Demon Island. As the Queen's daughter, Donna was trained harder and pushed farther than any other person on the island. She was expected to become stronger than any other, and when she met Steve Trevor and fell in love, it was her test of strength to go against that love and snap him like a dry twig. Now, having proven herself worthy in her mother's eyes, she set off into the world and forced her way into the crime syndicate of America as the new Superwoman, wielding the lasso of submission. Now, Donna's whole life goal is to truly make her mother proud by eventually returning to Demon Island, slaying her, and taking the throne for herself. Goals? Number 5, Aurora of Themyscira. Comics seem to continuously supply us with things we never thought we needed. In a moment not likely to happen again in the near future, the House of DC and the House of Marvel were friends. They could talk, they could play nice, and to prove that, one of the most beloved moments came in the mid-1990s when these two companies joined forces for a crossover. This took place in the amalgamated world of Earth 9602. On this Earth, it was not Diana Prince who became Wonder Woman. Instead, a meta-mutant child by the name of Aurora was rescued and raised as a princess of the Amazons by Queen Hippolyta, alongside Diana Diana Prince. The two fought alongside each other as they grew up, but when the time came to choose who would be Wonder Woman, Aurora's natural ability to control and harness the forces of the weather, plus her Amazonian training, allowed her to secure the victory. She went off to become one hell of a hero when she finally left the island to enter man's world. It's such an interesting and surprising mashup of characters, but when you properly think about it, it really does make a whole lot of sense that Storm and Wonder Woman could be the same person. Number 4. Injustice Wonder Woman. When you've got to sell a video game, you make your characters badass. And when that game is taking the heroes and villains of the DC Comics universe and mixing it with Mortal Kombat, that's just a recipe for some unstoppable forces. The Wonder Woman from the Injustice series is that unstoppable force. Injustice is essentially Superman losing his family and then deciding that he and other super beings should rule the Earth. His number one go-to person is Diana, and she's basically even worse than he is. Many people have argued that Wonder Woman was the real antagonist of the story. She caused the passing of Captain Atom, one of the best hopes against Superman. She takes the life of Huntress for insulting Superman, is the accomplice in the passing of Martian Manhunter and this low-level guy called Galaxor. She turns Harley Quinn into a shish kebab. She had taken the place of Lois Lane as Superman's lover, turned the other Amazons to Superman's cause, and the whole time she was doing that, she was whispering in Superman's ear, pushing him to go even farther and farther down the path of villainy. Number 3. Dead Earth. Now, I'm not sure what the general consensus on this comic book is, and quite frankly, I don't care because I think this version of Diana of Themyscira is just absolutely insanely dope. The comic picks up in an apocalyptic wasteland in what used to be Gotham. Deep down in the remnants of the Batcave, Wonder Woman had been kept alive in a containment unit and was awoken by a group of humans who were running from a mutated monster known as a Hydra. After saving the Humies and liberating their city, she journeys to Themyscira only to find out that the Hydra are actually her fellow Amazons mutated by atomic radiation after the Amazons had decided to go to war with the rest of humanity who had driven the Earth to its breaking point. The human world had bombarded Themyscira with nuclear fire, even though Diana used the absolute limits of her abilities to stop it. When Superman, who fought for humanity, turned up to try and explain why he couldn't have helped her, we just see how powerful this Wonder Woman is. Losing complete control of herself, Wonder Woman and Superman fought each other to the point of causing a great fire that plunged the world into the apocalypse, and at the end of that fight, Wonder Woman, who was double fisting some kryptonite, brought Superman to his final rest with a hole straight through his chest. She collapsed from the exhaustion, and when she learned of this past, Wonder Woman decided to set things right and protected what was left of humanity from what she once called her sisters. And in at number 2 is Brunhild. Earth 10 is a universe where things happen just a little differently in terms of our world history. Mainly, I'm talking about who came out on top at the end of World War II. Instead of what really happened, the Axis powers came out on top here, turning Germany and their symbol-wielding fascist party into the world's next superpower. But the only reason they achieved this was because they had actual superpowers on their side. The Justice League Axis, which eventually became the new Reichsman. For this alternate Wonder Woman, we actually have 2 different women, both going by the name Brunhild. The first being red-headed and the second being blonde-haired and blue-eyed. No surprise there, but both being extremely capable female warriors with seemingly no weaknesses. She seems to take inspiration from Norse mythology, and for me to back that up, there is indeed a Prime Earth Brunhild who is the leader of the Valkyries. What's interesting is that in the Golden Age, the Valkyries were enemies to Wonder Woman, but on the Prime Earth, it's actually become canon that Valkyries and Amazons are part of the same race. As such, Brunhilde does have all the same attributes as Wonder Woman, which was probably a big help in taking over the world. And finally, in at number 1 is Nubia. Nubia isn't really an alternate version of Wonder Woman. She's pretty much her own character, and she is in fact the sister of Diana. Nubia came to be in the exact same way as Diana, but where Diana was molded from white clay, Nubia was molded from black clay, and stolen away by the god of war, Ares, or if you prefer, Mars. Nubia was charged by the Greek gods with defending the entrance to the river Styx and the gates of Tartarus, and that on its own should tell you how capable this Amazon really is. Her powers appear to be exactly the same as Diana, and on Earth 23, Nubia actually is Wonder Woman, but seems to be even more powerful with complete access to her world's technology and mystical devices, suggesting her position may be more like Queen Hippolyta rather than Diana. And that's probably the case, because on Prime Earth, Nubia became the new and current Queen of Themyscira, and eventually the Queen of all Amazons. She's so cool and definitely my favorite of all those to have been Wonder Woman.
Number 10. She's coming to the CW. Marking the first Latina superhero title character of a DC series, Yara Flor is coming to the CW as a TV series. So it was announced back in November 2020 that producer Greg Berlanti will be behind the project, with Queen of the South producer and co-showrunner Dalen Rodriguez writing the pilot. Berlanti produced The Flash and Arrow, and also brought us DC's first Black-led series, Black Lightning, and first LGBTQ superhero, Batwoman. So the introduction of Yara Flor into the CW is something we're truly looking forward to. No casting announcements have been made yet, but we're expecting something within the next couple of months as the comic begins to grow and grow. Who would you cast as the new Wonder Woman? Let us know your thoughts down below, because we love reading those as well. And before we move on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and toss this video a thumbs up, that would help us out so much here at the studio. Thank you so much, you guys are the best. Now back to more Yara Flor. Number 9, Joelle Jones. With a new character comes a new origin story. So who is behind Yara Flor? Who is the writer to bring her to life? Joelle Jones. The first issue, titled Hell to Pay, was written by Joelle Jones with Jordi Belair on colors. She made her first publication with Madame Zandu Volume 2, Issue 19, back in 2010. And the look of Yara Flor was actually inspired by the Brazilian indigenous model, Suane Moreira. She's an Eisner-nominated artist and began writing and drawing her own series titled Lady Killer, brought to us by Dark Horse. So if you're a fan of the storytelling and design in those pages, Yara Flor is a must-read. She's also no stranger to the DC Comics world either, providing art for numerous titles like Adventures of Superman, Batman 66, Superman American Alien, and Supergirl being super.
Number 8. Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is one of the most powerful women around when it comes to villains in the DC universe. While she doesn't often act as a global threat, we learned in the Everyone Loves Ivy arc that if she wanted to, she could do that. Ivy in more recent years has flirted with a path of redemption, sometimes acting as a more morally conscious villain, and other times even acting as a hero or an anti-hero. In fact, even when she took over the world, she kind of had a pretty fair reason for why she should actually rule it. After all, things go a lot more smoothly and are a lot better overall for everyone, the planet especially included, when she is in charge. However, this also means that people don't really get to have free will, so that's not so great. Obviously. Which is why people were like, look, Ivy, you can't just control the world. People gotta mess it up with their free will. Free will, you know? Number 7. Hera. Hera isn't just a woman, she's also a goddess, one of the most powerful of the female goddesses of the Greek pantheon. Hera in Wonder Woman Historia of the Amazons, which tells the tale of how the Amazons came to be, is seen as the goddess who kind of like rules over all of the others. Like, not explicitly, but she definitely influences them a lot. She's the one that calls the shots. She is the one who typically commands them, and although she did not choose to aid them in creating the Amazons, she sneakily sent them some aid in her own way in the form of their to-be queen, the human woman Hippolyta, who would actually rise to become an Amazon. She is Zeus's wife, but despite her position as his partner, she's one of the few women in Greek mythology who would dare to trick him, spurn him, or even sometimes fight against him. Also, if you haven't read Wonder Woman Historia of the Amazons, you should go read it. It's really pretty, it's really great. I need to get like a tattoo somewhere from issue 1, I feel like, that is from that book, because it's just so stunning. Number 6. Supergirl. Hera might be a goddess, and Supergirl, you know, doesn't have that title, but she kind of may as well have it. Supergirl is a Kryptonian known often for being Superman's cousin. In fact, originally Kara Zor-El was his older cousin who was sent after him in order to protect him. However, she kind of got stuck in like the Earth's orbit, and her arrival on Earth was delayed. Pre her arrival, during the time when she was still in stasis, barely aging, Superman arrived on Earth and basically grew up. By the time that Kara Zor-El did land, Kal-El had aged to be older than her. So she's older in terms of like her technical like birth date, if she had a Kryptonian like birth certificate or license, but younger in terms of her experience living and, you know, her physical appearance. I didn't talk about her powers at all, but you guys all know who Supergirl is. She is super strong. You know, Superman, he's really strong. Supergirl, also really strong. I more wanted to just talk about how she's younger, I guess, but also older. It's a weird fun thing. Number 5, Hecate. One of the most powerful women in the DC universe is Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft. While she belongs to the Greek pantheon, in truth, Hecate is a goddess who is much more powerful and older than any group of gods around. We actually learned during the Witching Hour event that she, in fact, was asked to join the Greek pantheon and actually chose to accept that offer. She represents the power of magic, and in many ways the magic of the world and possibly of the universe is tied to her. Although she can be killed, it takes a lot of power to defeat Hecate, and even after her seeming demise, as the other kind pretty much like tore her apart, her power lived on in Circe, who had plotted for a way to basically take all of Hecate's power for herself, as she was one of the 5 witch-marked. And after being the only one remaining, she basically became the sole possessor of Hecate's power. Number 4, Naomi. Naomi is probably one of the most powerful of the newer heroes that we've seen in the DC universe. Her powers are on the level of heavy hitters such as Superman. In fact, while transformed into her superhero mode, Naomi's power set is pretty similar, except for one very important and unique element of her powers. Unlike Superman, whose weakness is magic, Naomi actually bolsters and boosts magic around her. Her powers allow her to generate energy, which she can use in a few different ways. In combat, using it to blast opponents, or to give her a physical boost. Alternatively, she can use that same energy to boost magic and magical beings around her, which is pretty neat. However, as Naomi is still young, despite her potential, she's still some learning to do when it comes to her power set and how to best utilize and control it, which is the only reason why she ranks so low. I feel like Naomi with time could be somewhere right near the top of this list. She's pretty nuts. I love it. Number 3, Circe. While Hecate and Hera are both goddesses, at one point Circe is even more powerful than both of them after she takes within herself all of Hecate's power, which allows her to tap into the source of magic. Even without being able to tap into the source of magic though, Circe is known for being a fearsome and powerful witch who can easily defeat many of those who would stand against her. Circe can shapeshift, teleport, possess others, manipulate time, and is considered to be immortal. Despite her youthful appearance, Circe is actually more than 1,000 years old. Number 2, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, despite having to face Circe and sometimes seemingly being slightly bested by her, always ends up coming out on top in the end. At least in main continuity, and at least usually. And so for that reason, I think it makes sense that she takes one of our top spots, especially above one of her most iconic and most powerful foes. Wonder Woman in recent years has also ascended to a temporary cosmic level of godhood, on top of already being a demigoddess as the daughter of Zeus and Hippolyta in prime continuity anyways. As a result of her origin, Wonder Woman has divine superhuman abilities, making her super fast, strong, dexterous, and durable, on top of all the other awesome stuff that she can do, like lead an army as a master tactician and communicate with animals. Wonder Woman, she can do it all. What can't she do? Number 1, Raven. Raven is one of the most powerful women in the DC universe. In fact, she is so powerful that she actually has to rein in her power in order to keep the rest of the world safe. That is why she often seems so detached. It's because her powers directly link up to her emotional responses. To get too swept up in emotion would mean a loss of control over her powers, which could potentially result in a darker side taking hold of her. We've seen what happens when this takes place, and it gives us one of Raven's most powerful forms. Although when she manages to evolve from darkness back to light, she can actually become even more powerful. As we see in the New Earth continuity, after she turns evil, attacks Starfire and Nightwing's wedding, and then later on is killed, but in dying actually becomes free of her evil demonic father Trigon's influence. With him defeated, she is free to rise again, purified of his corruption. And she gets a cool white cape, so that's bonus, you know? Who doesn't want a cool white cape? I love capes. Number 10. Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl is a hero who is known for belonging to part of the elite superhero team, the Justice League. She is actually the reincarnation of Shra, who was punished for helping to save Qatar the Deathbringer, despite his misdeeds. As punishment, Shra could never permanently die, and instead would be reincarnated into a new life, keeping with her all the memories of her previous lives, which gives her a lot of experience to use and means that she is extremely wise when it comes to tactics, fighting, and even approaches to science and advancement. Qatar the Deathbringer was also cursed to be reincarnated and is known as Hawkgirl's partner, Hawkman, in his current incarnation. Hawkgirl also has wings, can fly, and I believe currently her wings are also infused with nth metal still? I think that's still a thing. Aside from that, Kendra Saunders is also super strong, durable, and has a reasonably potent healing factor. Always helpful to heal. Number 9. Dr. Light. No, not that Dr. Light, don't worry. We're talking about the second Dr. Light, the heroic Dr. Light, Kimio Hoshi. In the New Earth continuity, Dr. Light was not at all related to Arthur Light, the original Dr. Light, known for being a major villain. Instead, she was actually a hero who happened to get blasted with energy from the Vega Star when Monitor reached out to create a champion after sensing the anti-Monitor and kind of getting spooked by his destructive vibes. Monitor was like, I don't think so, gonna just shoot some star energy out, and hopefully that hits someone who is gonna be a cool hero. Fingers crossed. Dr. Light is a scientist and astronomer turned into a hero who can tap into energy from the Vega Star, giving her almost unlimited power. She can use this energy to create illusions and energy constructs, blast her enemies, fly, and phase.
At number 8, we have Diana from Immortal Wonder Woman as part of Future State. In the future, Diana hasn't aged due to her Amazonian physiology, and we witness her recounting the experiences of visiting an apparition of a long-dead Batman as well as an aged Superman. After watching Superman disappear into the sun during a battle with Darkseid, the sun explodes in front of her and she has to make a decision whether or not to give up and die there and then. But instead of giving in, she brings life to a new future and a new hope for future generations of superheroes. We're then teased with a short sequence showing what a future version of Wonder Woman could be, as Nubia seems to take on the mantle at the end of the 2-part series, but more on her later. At number 7 is the Wonder Woman from DC 1,000,000. This is definitely the most futuristic version of the hero on this list, living in the 853rd century. She is a member of the Justice Legion Alpha and is actually made of marble, possessing enhanced intellect and even telepathy. First appearing in DC 1,000,000 number 1, this Wonder Woman is teleported to an unknown planet by a being named Telos, where she and a number of other heroes are faced with opposition in the form of Luthor bots, which take out many of the heroes, but she survives and is finally teleported once more to face off against the crime syndicate, where she is defeated by Superwoman. This is a pretty far-fetched and bizarre storyline, but hey, it's over 80,000 years in the future, so what else would we expect? At number 6, we have Wonder Woman, aka God of War, from Wonder Woman Future's End. This version of the hero is one of the most relentless but also tragic versions on the list. In the New 52, Future's End, we witness events taking place 35 years into the future when there is a massive takeover by an AI known as Brother Eye. The corpses of fallen superheroes are taken over by nanotechnology, including that of Wonder Woman, creating these spider-like mechanical monstrosities. And the Wonder Woman one might even qualify as a future version of Wonder Woman itself, although it is kinda just a lifeless robot parasite thing. Either way, to try and prevent this horrible future from taking place, Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond, has to go back in time and change the course of history. But in the new reality he creates is where, or rather when, we see this future version of Wonder Woman taking on the mantle of God of War. During a one-shot called Wonder Woman Future's End, Nemesis feels threatened by Diana and entraps her in a state of illusion of perpetual war, where she stays for some time. But when Superman drags her out of this illusion, she realizes that she'd prefer to use her powers for peace, and therefore becomes known as Peace instead of War. And this all comes before she's eventually, unfortunately, killed in battle with Brother Eye. At number 5 we have Nubia from Future State. First appearing a long time ago in 1973's Wonder Woman number 204, Nubia is introduced as the twin sister to Diana, who also happens to qualify for the title of Wonder Woman. But years later, during Future State Immortal Wonder Woman, Nubia returns in full Wonder Woman attire as though she's been doing it for years. A new announcement in Infinite Frontier number 0 shows readers what DC has in mind for Wonder Woman's future, seemingly introducing Nubia as one of the 2 new heroes to don the Wonder Woman mantle. What's more is Nubia also gets her own graphic novel back in February of 2021, which explores her upbringing set in a modern human world. At number 4 we have the Diana from Wonder Woman Evolution. This is the most recent future version of Wonder Woman on this list, currently being published in 2022. This futuristic storyline tells the story of Wonder Woman being taken away from Earth by a distant cosmic entity and forced to face off in challenges to prove the worthiness of Earth and its inhabitants, and the stakes to allow Earth to continue existing in the universe. There isn't much to be said about this version of the hero because she's just kind of getting started, but we can confirm that she is kicking ass and taking no prisoners as she continues to fight as Earth's delegate. And whatever this situation ends up building up to will be determined as the year goes on. So keep up with Wonder Woman Evolution. Get a copy now, there's only 8 issues out so far. At number 3 we have Wonder Woman from Wonder Woman Dead Earth. This version of the hero is faced with a dismal future after waking up from a centuries-long sleep. She wakes to the world in an apocalyptic state inhabited by mutated beings known as the Hydra. But considering how far into the future it is, Diana's JLA partners are all long gone and she's forced to face this brutal future wasteland on her own. The story is only told in 4 issues, but it takes on a grittier approach to the character of Wonder Woman, depicting her as much less dignified and put together than usual. But she manages to pull together her inner strength, and with the help of a deceased Batman's utility belt, she goes on into the wasteland to face off against massive beasts, partake in a gladiatorial arena, and eventually come into contact with a withered, robotic Superman, who actually helps in giving Diana a final boost of power to defeat a massive Hydra beast. It's one of the more unique depictions of the character on the list, and just in general, with some great artwork too. Go take a look if you haven't already. At number 2 we have Cassandra Sandsmark from the Titans of Tomorrow. Known more commonly as Wonder Girl, Cassandra does indeed have a run as Wonder Woman in the future. First seen in Teen Titans Volume 3, Issue 17, the Titans of Tomorrow come about after a present-day version of the Teen Titans from New Earth travel 10 years into the future and see a grim reality. The USA has been split into East and West, and their future selves have adopted a more relentless approach to justice. And during what's known as a Great Crisis, most of Earth's main heroes have died, leaving jobs open for these future Titans. Even though this is a more brutal version of Wonder Woman, it is interesting to see Cassandra take on the mantle, and it seems like there are no 2 ways about it. No matter what the modern Teen Titans try to do to change the timeline so that they don't turn out as more brutal versions of themselves, it doesn't work. Finally, at number 1 we have Yara Flor. Yara is from the tribe of the Amazons and actually comes from the heart of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. She is first introduced as the new Wonder Woman back in 2020 as part of Future State, which shows us a new lineup of DC heroes moving forward into the future. This character has also been established as Wonder Girl in Infinite Frontier number 0, but with all the heroes that DC is planning on rebooting for this new wave, we still haven't gotten a full-fledged backstory for Yara quite yet. The best we have so far is a 2-part series called Future State Wonder Woman, but we're looking forward to it because Yara is a true departure for the character. DC seems to be bringing human culture into the origins of Wonder Woman for a new generation of readers, which I think will be cool to watch unfold. Also, she's just a cool new hero that many people online have been showing quite a lot of excitement about, including myself. There's not a ton to be said about Yara as Wonder Woman, but you can catch up with her adventures in the 2-part series released in January 2021.
Number 10. Wonder Woman Dark Knight's Death Metal. Now, although this is technically in the main continuity, the Wonder Woman that appears in Dark Knight's Death Metal absolutely deserves a spot on this list today because she is one serious badass. Introduced to us in the first issue of Dark Knight's Death Metal, Wonder Woman alongside Swamp Thing is a guard of the demonic-looking prison that holds any villain that does not want to team up with the Batman Who Laughs. So it would kind of seem like she's working for him, but it's revealed later that is not the case when she just impales and rips the Batman Who Laughs in two with her new awesome-looking weapon, the Chainsaw of Truth. Wonder Woman's whole goal in this storyline is to correct the mistakes that have been made and to set everything back on track by somehow resetting the timeline. Basically, she's the Wonder Woman we all know and love, stuck in one of the darkest and scariest DC storylines to date, and that is why she is starting off our list today. Check her out for yourself, starting with 2020's Dark Knight's Death Metal, Volume 1, Number 1. Number 9, Bizarra. You can probably guess it from the name, but Bizarra is the Bizarro version of Wonder Woman. Now, if you're not familiar with Bizarro, he was basically an incomplete clone of Superman, which means that Bizarra is an incomplete clone of Wonder Woman. She was created using the powers of the Fifth Dimension and is meant to be the evil counterpart to our Wonder Woman, but I think we all know that Bizarro versions of any hero never really get the job done. Even though Bizarra possesses both the bracelets of submission and the lasso of truth like her counterpart, she's only strong enough to challenge Wonder Woman in a one-on-one duel, and when it comes to brains, oh man, trust me, she does not even come close to Wonder Woman. As a member of the Injustice League of Un-America, Bizarro was one of the many that was captured by Metallo in his attempt to rule over Bizarro World, but was thankfully freed by Bizarro himself. Now, I think my favorite thing about Bizarra and the other Bizarro copies is their way of speaking. She spoke in a very twisted tongue and always meant the opposite of what she said. For example, when she says, "I love you," she actually means, "I hate you." Check her out for yourself in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1.
Number 8, Stephanie Trevor, aka Wonder Girl. Like the last entry, Stephanie was born to Diana and Steve Trevor in 1953, the same year Clark Kent and Lois Lane also had a daughter. Also called Wonder Girl, she is half Amazon thanks to her mother's heritage and possesses half of her mother's superhuman strength. She made her big debut as Wonder Girl when her fellow superheroes were held hostage in Central City. After working together to defeat 3 villains, her and some other heroes like Kid Flash and Supergirl form up their own superhero group called the Justice League of America. She has excellent combat skills and is bound by the same rules as Wonder Woman, such as losing her powers if her bracelets are bound by a man. This would suggest that she has visited Paradise Island in the past, or perhaps been trained by the Amazons, but that is never explicitly stated. Later in life, she takes over the role of Wonder Woman and becomes chairperson of the Justice League of America. Number 7, Zod. Superboy. Zod is actually more of a clone than a flesh and blood child, created from partial genetic templates of Wonder Woman and Lord Superman's DNA. Lord Superman, you say? That's right. In this story, Superman is an evil tyrant and Wonder Woman marries him to help bring peace between warring factions. Wonder Woman has stayed behind with Lord Batman, leaving her home universe as the two are in love. Lord Batman was leading the war of liberation against Superman and is eventually killed. Lord Superman and Wonder Woman hate each other deeply, but they get married to kind of make this bond happen, and so they produce a son through genetic engineering to kind of cement the peace between the two sides. It's a really weird way to settle things, probably put a lot of pressure on the kid, but who am I to judge? He's also known as Superboy. Number 6. Jonathan Kent II. Jonathan is the son of Wonder Woman and Superman in a reality known as the Kingdom. John was kidnapped on the day of his birth by Gog, who went back in time to destroy Superman at various points throughout history. Gog held Jonathan hostage inside a chunk of kryptonite, and though he is later rescued by Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, he seemed to vanish, and the gang felt like their efforts time traveling to save him were in vain. However, he actually just slipped into hypertime, where he was watched over by an older version of himself, who is now the guardian of hypertime. It's like manifest destiny. After this revelation, the infant Jonathan was returned to his parents so that they could raise him to become the hero that they have already bore witness to. Number 5, Etta and Vicky Trevor. These two appear in Wonder Woman Amazonia in 1998. They're only children in the story, and they only appear in a couple of scenes, but they're still Wonder Woman's children. This is a tragic version of the beloved Wonder Woman story. When Diana was only 3, a Royal Air Marines squadron led by Captain Stephen Trevor crash lands in the ocean, and they discover Paradise Island. They slaughter the Amazonians and take Diana away, who is later sold to a workhouse. She grows up on the streets of London in a poor district. Later in life, Stephen Trevor, wicked and evil in this universe, takes her in off of the streets and into his museum of oddities, and he also marries her. He was abusive and unkind to her. She once saved the life of King Jack Planters, and later adopts the heroic persona of Wonder Woman, secretly organizing a resistance against Jack the Ripper and his men, the cruel King Jack of England, a misogynist who suspended women's rights and established a harsh, patriarchy. It's a seriously dark alternate universe. She eventually takes down the evil king and her crappy husband who ends up going insane, and she marries the king's son later, Prince John Charles. It's a real roller coaster. It sort of has a happy ending. Number 4, Donna of Amazon, aka Fury. This is Fury's new and improved version from DC's New 52. Her name is Donna, daughter of Wonder Woman and the new god Steppenwolf of Apocalypse. She is the last of the Amazons, as all the rest of them died during the invasion of Earth 2. She acted as Steppenwolf's main enforcer until Mr. Miracle convinces her to join forces. She is super powerful, having gone toe-to-toe with Big Barda and even Supergirl. After the events of Convergence, she becomes the Wonder Woman of Earth 2. She's a little more violent and warlike than her mother. At the end of Earth 2 society, she uses Pandora's box to reshape Earth 2 into a classic Golden Age era World War II setting, but with fancy technology and the absence of any international crises or supervillains. Number 3, Lara. First appearing in March 2002, Lara is the future Supergirl, daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman. She has both Kryptonian and Amazon powers inherited from her parents. She grew up on Paradise Island, not knowing much of her father, as her parents wanted to protect her from the likes of Lex Luthor and Brainiac, as Superman knew they would wind up trying to control her. Later in life, she does eventually reveal herself during an open war against Brainiac, and she helps to defeat him. She played a pivotal role in the battle against Quar, tossing him directly into the sun to prevent him from performing a nuclear self-destruct that would likely have destroyed the entire Earth. 2 months later, we discovered that she actually survived this event and is living with her brother in downtown Metropolis. Number 2, Bruce Kent. Bruce is the son of Superman and Wonder Woman, and appeared in Superman Distant Fires in 1998. He became the last son of Earth, as he was sent off into space by Superman using a makeshift starship at the end of the whole story. Superman Distant Fires features a world in conflict. Armageddon has occurred, with entire populations wiped out, and radiation has robbed Earth's heroes and villains of their superpowers. Clark Kent is one of the few survivors of this apocalypse, fighting off giant rats and atomic mutants without any superpowers. He eventually meets another group of survivors that includes Flash, Bill Batson, and even the Joker, who has been cured of his insanity as everyone has lost their powers. Wonder Woman is there too, and the two are married and have the child Bruce together. Number 1, Hunter Prince. Hunter was birthed by Wonder Woman, but fathered by the Darkness, a cosmic force that comes to Earth after the Kindred battle against the Justice League. Hunter was adopted by Superman and Lois Lane, who Diana trusted the most to protect and love her son. Hunter, however, thinks that he was given away for being a boy. He was raised by the Kents and trained with them, as well as some other super children. The Darkness eventually starts devouring the world though, and Diana simply can't contain it. The superheroes decide to hide their children on Mount Olympus, which was abandoned by the Olympian gods, and the Kents are then killed by the Darkness. When Hunter later emerges, he finds a desolate world and does what he can to help those who remain. Later, he travels back in time 20 years to seek help from the Justice League, eventually reuniting with Diana and confronting her about abandoning him. And Superman allows him to stay at his home. Number 10. The Wonder Woman family? Wonder Woman has a history. During her teenage years, she was known as Wonder Girl, and as a child, Wonder Tot. On Earth 124.1, advanced technology allowed for all 3 versions of Wonder Woman to exist at the same time. They frequently appeared together as the Wonder Woman family, along with her original mother, the Wonder Queen. Wonder Girl is introduced in Wonder Woman number 107, and later in issue 113 they introduce Wonder Tot. After asking comic fans to write in letters if they like what they're seeing and they want some more, the creators got a lot of positive feedback and thus created the Wonder Woman family in issue number 124. While not technically Wonder Woman's babies, they definitely deserve a mention. They had a great run until issue number 158, at which point writer Robert Kanigher summoned the entire supporting cast of the Wonder Woman comic to his office to let them know things were going to be going in a new direction. That actually happens in the comic. Number 9. Hippolyta Trevor, aka Fury. First appearing in Wonder Woman number 300 in 1983, She is the daughter of Princess Diana and her husband Steve Trevor. She was born with superhuman abilities like her mother, and named after her grandmother, Queen of the Amazons. She was trained by her mother and became a notable crime fighter, and her father was a respected military leader. In early childhood, she wanted to join the Justice Society of America, but was refused as she was too young and untested. Instead, she and other rejected members, such as Power Girl and Huntress, decided to form their own group known as Infinity Inc. At one point, the Justice Society is possessed by the stream of ruthlessness and sort of become evil, and the youths of Infinity Inc. prove themselves to be plenty old enough for superheroing and defeat their elder heroes. After a crisis on Infinite Earths, Fury has her history retconned as she was rewritten as the daughter of the All-Star Squadron's Fury, Helena Cosmatos. Interestingly, this other version of Fury still winds up getting trained by Wonder Woman.
Number 8. Brunhilde. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where many of our favorite heroes have been turned into villainous versions of themselves, comes Valkyrie Brunhilde, the Wonder Woman of this Earth that is based on Norse mythology, as opposed to, the original Greek. On Earth 10, all these superheroes we're familiar with are part of the German army and are believers of fascism, so from that you can probably assume that most of them are pure evil. Brunhilde is a member of the New Reichman alongside other dark iterations of the Justice League members, whose only real goal is to rid the world of the freedom fighters and spread their ideals across the land. The New Reichman are, however, taken down pretty much from the inside after Overman began to feel guilty about his past deeds. Honestly, put simply, Brunhilde is an evil version of Wonder Woman that can and will go to any lengths necessary to get the job done. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, number 1. Number 7. Deceased Wonder Woman. Taking place in the Deceased DC universe, Deceased is a mini-series that follows the aftermath of Cyborg's body being used to carry a version of the anti-life equation that ended up turning the general population into zombies. In this mini-series, we see Wonder Woman become a member of the Unliving, which is basically DC's equivalent of zombies, whose whole purpose is to spread anti-life by either infecting or killing living things. They show very little signs of intelligence, and they still retain the ability to utilize their skill sets, powers, and technologies respectively to a surprisingly effective manner. The Infected have also shown numerous times of coming up with very elaborate strategies and tactical decisions to bypass pockets of resistance and cause as much death and destruction as possible. Our Infected Wonder Woman actually showed that she was able to form coherent and full sentences when she was interrogated by Cyborg, implying that she still has some humanity left in her. However, after being set free, she immediately decapitated Cyborg to preserve any secret she told him. Honestly, all I have to say is Wonder Woman's strength and skills combined with the mind and body of a zombie makes for a scary hero. So check her out for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased, number 1. Number 6. Whom God Destroys Wonder Woman. This version of Wonder Woman only showed up in a 4-issue series called Superman and Wonder Woman Who Gods Destroy. This storyline takes place in an alternate world where Europe is still under the control of the Germans, and Lois Lane actually steps up to the plate as the new Wonder Woman in order to protect those around her from the tyrannical ruling of the original Wonder Woman and Superman. Not a whole lot is known about this evil Wonder Woman other than the fact that she betrayed her home in order to obtain more power. And just like the other evil versions of her, her lack of humanity is incredibly evident as she looks down on Lois Lane's Wonder Woman for just being immortal. The story ends with Lois defeating the evil Wonder Woman, and it is revealed that the gods Zeus and Hera were actually playing a game of chess using the world as their chess pieces. And that's why everything is so messed up. Oddly enough though, the story doesn't quite end there because once everyone is defeated, everything seems to be pretty much back to normal. Superman, Lois, and Wonder Woman all decide to live together on Superman's fortress on the moon. Check out this miniseries for yourself, starting with 1997's Superman and Wonder Woman Whom Gods Destroy, number 1. Number 5. Frank Miller's Wonder Woman. Hopefully we all know who Frank Miller is, the writer of The Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil Born Again. Well, Miller also took a crack at the character that is Wonder Woman in his Batman series The Dark Knight Strikes Back. In this series, heroes like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel have been forced to work for the government since their loved ones are being held hostage and are under threat. Superman is even ordered by the president, who turns out to be a computer-generated front for Lex Luthor and Brainiac, to stop Batman. It eventually gets to the point in the story where Superman, Wonder Woman, and their daughter Lara joins forces with Batman once again because they deem his plan to be the only way to get out of this whole mess. Now I'll be honest, this Wonder Woman isn't on this list today because of how dark the story is. It's mostly because this is considered to be one of the worst incarnations of Wonder Woman to date. Now she's definitely the warrior you expect from Wonder Woman, but her cold and quite frankly sexist portrayal in the comics was nothing short of distasteful. It also doesn't help that her humanity was put in question throughout the entirety of the graphic novel. If you feel like you can stomach it, check out this Wonder Woman and this whole series starting with 2002's The Dark Knight Strikes Again, number 1. Number 4. Wonder Woman God of War. Following 2011's Flashpoint event, DC rebooted the entirety of its continuity into the New 52. In the new Wonder Woman, the story of Hippolyta creating Diana from clay is revealed to actually be a lie, and Diana is actually a child of Zeus, and the whole clay bit was a cover story intended to keep Zeus's jealous wife Hera from killing her. Sometime later during her training, Diana became the secret protege of Ares, the god of war, only to have him drop her when she refused to kill for him. Years later, after Diana learned her true origin, she found herself embroiled in the power struggles of her Olympian kin. In the course of one adventure, she had to kill Ares, which made her the new god of war, and although she fought against the role for a while, as the battle against the monstrous firstborn of Zeus heated up, she stepped right into the job. Honestly, who knows what Wonder Woman creator William Marston would have made of this, given that he wrote her as this force of peace and this nemesis of the god of war. He might be happier with the events in DC Rebirth, which implies that the whole, Diana's New 52 adventures didn't actually happen. Number 3, Superwoman. I feel like we all knew this alternate Wonder Woman was going to end up on this list today. Hailing from Earth 3, the Earth that is said to be the birthplace of evil, Superwoman is a renegade Amazon who has also taken on the identity of Lois Lane, depending on the version that we're talking about here. Depending on her origin, she is either from Paradise Island or its antimatter equivalent known as Damnation Island. While there are many versions of her out there, one thing that they all have in common is her sadistic personality and the love triangle she has with her colleagues. Equipped with a lasso of submission, a barbed and much scarier looking version of the lasso of truth that forces the captor to not only comply with the user, but also fall in love with them, which she has used a few times to her advantage, if you know what I mean. As a member of the crime syndicate, she helped imprison most of the members of the various Justice Leagues in the Firestorm Matrix and began a reign of terror over the world, eliminating any resistance in their way. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or skip ahead to 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 2, Injustice Wonder Woman. Easily one of the most dark and evil versions of Wonder Woman out there. Not only did she see Superman's descent into evil before it ever happened, but she also actively encouraged it, practically manipulating the Man of Steel when he was at his worst for her own personal gain. Not only that, but by the events of the original Injustice video game, she had been ruling Paradise Island with an iron fist and showed absolutely no remorse. She served as Superman's right hand and took the place of Lois Lane as his new love interest. However, he clearly showed no love towards her because he was still mourning the loss of his dead wife, who he killed himself. When she is confronted by her mainstream counterpart, the mainstream Wonder Woman reprimands her for blindly following a man who does not feel as much devotion to her as she does to him. And once Wonder Woman is defeated, she is taken by her fellow Amazons to be imprisoned for her role in the regime and is later seen on Kahndaq during the events of Injustice 2 as she has been exiled. Take a look at her story for yourself, starting with 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us number 1, or honestly just feel free to replay the games. And finally, number 1, Flashpoint Wonder Woman. When the Flash accidentally created Flashpoint as a result of attempting to save his mother, the ripple effects changed the timeline to the worst it's ever been. Batman is Thomas Wayne, Superman is in a government facility, and Wonder Woman is the monarch of the Amazons and currently at war with Atlantis, all because she killed Aquaman's wife, who knew Wonder Woman was having an affair with her husband. With all of the normal powers and accessories that make Wonder Woman a formidable foe, this iteration of Wonder Woman seems to lack the empathy that prevents Diana from absolutely losing it and killing everyone. As the war went on, Aquaman and Wonder Woman forged an alliance to take down a mutual enemy, Batman. As both monarchs send their troops to Batman's lair, the world is erased, killing every single inhabitant. Absolutely cruel and bloodthirsty, this Wonder Woman has something that she shares with her Injustice counterpart: her lack of love and above all, her sickening lack of humanity. Now, I love the Flashpoint timeline with all of my heart, so why not check it and her out for yourself, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, number 1.
Number 10, Batwoman. I love Batwoman, but I feel like so many times she honestly gets shafted, especially in regard to her connection to the Bat family. Granted, Kate Kane does often like to be independent from her cousin, Bruce Wayne, but she is still a member of the family, and I don't think she really gets featured enough in the comics. While she has been featured elsewhere in the DC universe, she hasn't had her own self-titled series since 2018, and even then, that series only lasted for a year, from 2017 to 2018, having just shy of 20 issues. You might think, wow, well, that's still a good accomplishment in modern day comics, and you're right. However, when you look at, how long Batman always goes on for, we could have a little bit more Batwoman than like whatever she got, like 18, 19 issues. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you want more DC content from us, do I have good news for you? We have a DC Comics playlist, so go check that out. Number 9, Stargirl. Stargirl is one of those characters that I just feel we don't see enough of in the comics. Now, she has had her moments in the comics, and she did end up getting her own TV show, it is true, but considering that she did have her own TV series, I was kind of hoping we get to see more of her in the comics as a result. And in recent years, since her series started, this hasn't really been as much the case. Now, she has been on the Justice League before, sure, and she's had her own mini-series as recently as 2022, which is pretty good, but we still have never had an ongoing comic series for Stargirl. Like, she's never had a self-titled ongoing. And considering how cool Courtney Whitmore is and how much she is loved by the fans, it's honestly just kind of unfortunate.
Number 8, Cheetah. A much more intimidating cat, Cheetah has had a bit of a legacy, and there are a few different versions of the character. The most recent iteration of Cheetah is Barbara Minerva, who just recently appeared in DC's Wonder Woman 1984. A skilled archaeologist and linguist, she has a keen interest in the lost culture of the Amazons, and she actually helped Wonder Woman learn English when she first came to the United States. Dr. Minerva has made a pact with a god, transforming her into the cheetah with superhuman speed and all the deadly attributes of a feline. She battles with the inner turmoil of resisting her animalistic rage and predatory fury, and was once friends with Wonder Woman, at least in her human form. She was once busted out of jail by the crime syndicate and recruited onto their team. After a while, she led her own team known as the Menagerie, who terrorized New York from their hideout in Central Park. Number 7, Punchline. Also called Alexis Kay, she is the Joker's new right-hand woman, as Harley has a lot going on right now and the two aren't really on speaking terms. She was a student at Snyder College and encountered the Joker while on a field trip to a TV studio. Joker hijacked the studio, and Alexis was forced at gunpoint to act as the newsreader, delivering Joker's message to the citizens of Gotham. After this encounter, she became obsessed, starting a podcast about the Joker and poisoning the people around her to try and get his attention. She eventually kills her college dean, proving herself to the Joker, who taught her how to create a modified form of his Joker venom. Link in the script there. She goes on to help Joker in his war against Batman, eventually having an epic showdown against Harley Quinn and Batman. She wields a couple of daggers and holds her own well against Catwoman and Harley. Number 6, Silver Banshee. First appearing in Action Comics number 595, Silver Banshee is a villain with sonic powers who frequently goes up against Superman. She was once insanely powerful, but has sort of been dumbed down a bit over the years. It's just how it goes with these supervillains sometimes. But in her youth, she was dragged into the Netherworld during a supernatural conflict as family stuff, and granted superpowers by a creature called the Crone. She is initially controlled by the powers like a curse, but later overcomes it with the help of Supergirl. They become fast friends and get to know each other pretty well. The two later hang out in a bar together, and it's totally lit. They're having a great time until her dad, Black Banshee, shows up. Luckily, the two of them are able to defeat Black Banshee together. Silver Banshee is known for her ability to learn language instantly, and more importantly, this crazy power to just make people die by saying their name. It's sort of like the Black Canary's canary cry, except the Banshee version, and it instantly kills you. Number 5, Blackfire. Blackfire is the older sister of Starfire from the Teen Titans. She often appears as an adversary of the Titans and is extremely powerful, outmatching the already astounding Starfire in battle. She can absorb ultraviolet radiation and transform it into deadly bolts she calls Black Bolts, and can even change radiation into energy, giving her superhuman strength and endurance. She is especially powerful, capable of interstellar travel and flight in space. It's kind of the same thing. She appears in Red Hood and the Outlaws number 11, where she fights alongside her sister and takes down the Blight after they capture Roy Harper. It's an epic team up and a great reunion for the two sisters. Number 4, Mary, Queen of Blood. Mary Seward is the Queen of Blood, appearing in House of Mystery number 290 in 1981. She once had a lover named Andrew Bennett, a decorated nobleman who was bitten and turned into a vampire. Mary begged Andrew to bite her as well, hoping that the two could spend eternity together. However, Andrew resists the vampiric bloodlust while Mary embraces it and becomes a ruthless killer. She forms a cult called the Blood Red Moon and Andrew hunts her across the centuries trying to stop her. She once turned an entire temple of monks into vampires, but they rather impressively resist the bloodlust through mindfulness and meditation. She has a crazy host of powerful abilities, including psychokinesis, transformation, regeneration, superhuman strength, not to mention immortality. As long as she has a steady supply of blood, she is extremely powerful, and I'm sure it's easy for her to get more. Number 3, Killer Frost. Killer Frost is just a classic deadly female villain, an icy-hearted femme fatale who will literally suck the life out of you in a heartless attack. There have been multiple iterations of Frost, always iconic and always super powerful, having once even sold her soul to become more powerful. She has been kidnapped and forced to work on the Suicide Squad, and once even worked alongside Batman. Caitlin Snow is the newest Frost, a scientist who is tricked by Hive and made to die in a staged accident, but she instead survives and gains her ice-based powers. She is not made of ice, but instead generates organic ice-like cells that make up her entire genetic makeup. She is a heat vampire, absorbing the body heat of others to kill them. Number 2, Enchantress. Also known as June Moon, Enchantress gained her powers from an immensely powerful being and almost immediately winds up battling against Supergirl. She later joins the Suicide Squad as Amanda Waller agrees to help her control her evil Enchantress side. She can manipulate energy, heal, and even teleport. She once took on Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Superman all at once, and has defeated other villains as well. Her powers have gotten kind of erratic and unpredictable since June Moon and Enchantress became separated from one another, but she has still demonstrated some impressive raw power in her villainous career. She is capable of flight, necromancy, and possession, elemental control, and even resurrection, but only if the corpse is fresh. If it's not though, she can always use the necromancy. Number 1, Evil Supergirl. Lex Luthor had an evil scheme that basically caused all of this. He created a black kryptonite energy ray, which he used on Supergirl, hoping to corrupt her. Instead though, the ray generated a second dark version of Supergirl. This dark version had similar memories and experiences, but believed that she was sent to Earth to kill Superman. And as you can imagine, she's crazy powerful. She goes on a rampage using her Kryptonian powers, causing tons of damage, and even taking down Black Canary and the Flash before finally facing off in an epic battle with Superman and Wonder Woman. Evil Supergirl is likely one of the most powerful villains ever, and it's actually Wonder Woman that brings her down in the end, catching both versions of Supergirl in her lasso and merging them together back into one.
At number 10, we have Wonder Woman from the Kingdom Come storyline. In Kingdom Come, Diana has the same origin as the Wonder Woman we know, also serving in the Justice League alongside Superman and Batman. But in the future, Batman has retired and the world has become darker and unforgiving. Diana herself even loses sight of her moral values and becomes less ethical in her heroic practices. Due to this shift in her practice, she is then exiled from Paradise Island and forced to reform on her own. And as the story progresses, she is the one who regularly visits Superman in his Fortress of Solitude and convinces him to return to heroism to help the crisis in Kansas. If you don't know this storyline, the crisis that I refer to is the culmination of a relentless new generation of heroes getting into a dangerous conflict with the governments of the world. With Wonder Woman's approach to justice still coming off as a bit harsh, Superman is hesitant to work with her at first, but eventually they do much more than work together. They actually get married and have 5 kids. At number 9, we have Lois Lane from Superman/Wonder Woman, Whom Gods Destroy. In this Elseworlds tale, we see a world occupied by depicting what would happen if the Third Reich was never defeated during World War II. And the Nazi ideology even poisons the ranks of the superhero community, turning the original Diana, aka Wonder Woman, into a herself. But during a battle between the Greek pantheon and the Athena is sacrificed, which somehow endows an aging Lois Lane with powers, leading her to take on the mantle of Wonder Woman herself. While this is going on, Superman gets turned into a Minotaur, and regular Superman gets turned into a woman. Once again, I don't understand why or how this happens, but she then infiltrates the Great Hall of the Reich, while this new Lois Lane Wonder Woman takes down the brainwashed Wonder Woman and ties her up with her magic lasso. It's a strange story, but hey, a future version of Wonder Woman that's actually a superpowered Lois Lane fighting. That's pretty badass.
Number 8. more Wonder Woman. On January 5th, Future State Wonder Woman began. Now, of course, being part of DC's Future State event that runs through February. But we also get to see an older version of Diana Prince as well at the end of her time. And this begins with Future State Immortal Wonder Woman. We will also see Yara cross paths with Superman and other Future State big hitters. So if you're a casual reader, this is the perfect time to brush up on a little bit of Wonder Woman's history and follow along as she makes new allies, enemies, and shapes history along the way. Number 7. Where does it take place? The CW's upcoming Wonder Girl show has been rumored to be attached to DC's Titans. Now, this is unlikely to be true. See, following Crisis on Infinite Earths event, we saw every DC TV series smashed together and it was glorious. And now, the Titans story has gone back and returned to its own Earth 9. So it's likely the Wonder Girl series will be set in its own parallel world, similar to what Stargirl is doing. Or it will take place in the Arrowverse beside the main CW lineup. Who knows? What are your thoughts? Number 6. Jerry? We all love a trusty sidekick, and when it comes to winged horses, well, you better be talking about Jerry. Her transportation method is a pretty cute one. See, when Yara first cries out for the noble steed, he is nowhere to be seen. She yells his name in the middle of taking down a massive Hydra. "Where is that stupid animal?" she says. And it turns out Jerry is elsewhere. He's just drinking some water, hanging out, enjoying the breeze, just being Jerry, you know? And then leaving it until last minute, he finally arrives to carry Yara to safety. Or rather, to carry Yara even closer to the Hydra to get a better hit, you know, to take it down. So Jerry has some words of advice, but that's up to you to put it together. Yara can understand him, and all the readers get is we or re. You know, classic horse talk. Number 5, Kaopora. Making her first appearance as well in the first issue, we meet the tour guide to the dark side. She lives in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil and ends up beside Yara on her quest to the underworld. She can make animals do whatever she asks. The only catch is that they have to be animals from our physical world. She also has chlorokinesis, meaning that she can turn the jungle all around, making people get lost, which Yara specifically mentions a time where she did exactly that to her, which sounds like an absolute nightmare. Maybe that's the reason why I wasted all that time in Ocarina of Time as a kid. Left, right? Damn it. What makes her helpful right out of the gate is her dimensional travel ability, with Yara set on rescuing her sister from the grasps of Hades. I mean, you have to get past the bouncer first, and to cap it off, she's also immortal. So she's basically the best tour guide slash sidekick you can have. Number 4, she doesn't take no for an answer. Okay, so in the first few pages of Future State Wonder Woman, we see Yara Flor battling it out with a Hydra, like the one I just mentioned. She begins cutting the horn off after she takes it down, and then when Kaopora, the Forest Guardian spirit, the friend who I just mentioned, shows up and warns her not to do that, and how she won't allow poaching. But Yara insists that she takes the horn of the beast and plans to drive it into the heart of Hades, twisting until it oozes with thick black blood, and then bring back her sister herself. Okay, so Kaopora says that she can look past the death of a wayward Hydra, but taking its horn simply just won't fly. And Yara responds with, "Watch me." Ooh, I literally said ooh out loud when I read that. I was like, here comes trouble, here we go. And then what do you know, she agrees to help her get to the underworld, but first you have to make it there. Meaning, you have to go through. Number 3, she hates airports. I mean, don't we all? I mean, the best feeling is traveling, but like the worst feeling is also traveling, you know? Especially now, I can't imagine how exhausting the whole process is going to be moving forward in this new, cleaner world that we're in. Well, Yara hates airports just as much as the rest of us. While they're checking in with the demon border officer, Yara quickly becomes tired of waiting. There's actually a pretty funny exchange between Kaopora and the demon. She's looking for her membership card, and then after the demon says some gibberish, she responds with, "I know, right? Definitely feels like a Monday." It gives the readers a good laugh, but not Yara. See, this is the turning point where she becomes tired of waiting and small talk, and she just walks through the gate, or at least she attempts to. See, after a few clicks and pushes of the turnstile, she just tears the damn thing clean off. And then she realizes she made a mistake and then gently and hilariously places it on the counter next to the demon officer, who was just giving her that look. Number 2, the underworld. So the best feeling, like I said, is arriving at a brand new place or a brand new airport. You've made it, you're finally there. The smell is different, the pace has changed, you have that excitement mixed with travel anxiety, it's great. Well, Yara Flor experienced this herself upon her first visit to the main transit hub for the underworld, which is described by Kaopora as this limbo realm. The people that die end up there to get sorted out and then sent on their way to whatever afterlife or eternity they envision. It's a pretty depressing place. I mean, it's full of dead people, very Beetlejuice-like, you know? Guys walking around holding their heads. It's crazy. So when it comes time for Yara to advance in this lineup, she quickly realizes she has to pay death. So while Kaepora is giving Yara a hard time for missing her birthday, Yara tries to steal a coin from a dead man in front of her in order to get through. Not a good idea. And number 1. Brazilian politics. I mean, sure, the underworld is always an exciting time, got a lot of drama happening down there, but what's Yara Flor's goal here? What's important to her besides saving her family from the grasp of Hades? Well, she begins her story going after incompetent, hypocritical, corrupt politicians in São Paulo, Brazil. In the future state Superman Wonder Woman issue 1, it's set in the near future where there's quite a few of these guys zipping back and forth to meetings in their fancy helicopters. So she literally wants to make the skies cleaner. She even gives one of them a hard time, asking about where the money's gone for all the roads. I mean, to be fair, I've always wanted to try one of those Uber helicopters. Maybe I'll do it someplace Yara isn't hanging out, you know? Or else she'll make me write lessons down over and over again like Bart Simpson.